A wife abandons her sick husband for money, but when she decides to return and discovers his secret, her life changes forever. Please consider subscribing to the channel to support our projects. Sarah and Mark had been married for 10 years. Their relationship once filled with love and shared dreams. Mark, a former war veteran, returned home with deep emotional scars and the heavy burden of PTSD. His health, both mental and physical, began to decline, making everyday life a constant struggle. Despite his valiant efforts to maintain normalcy, the shadows of his past battles loomed large, affecting his ability to work and function as he once had. Sarah, on the other hand, was an ambitious and dedicated lawyer, steadily climbing the ladder in a prestigious New York law firm. Her career demanded long hours and unyielding dedication, leaving little room for anything else. The financial pressures were immense, as Mark's medical bills piled up alongside the costs of their day-to-day life. Sarah found herself increasingly torn between the relentless demands of her profession and the escalating needs of her husband. As the strain intensified, their once harmonious home became a place of tension and unspoken frustrations. Sarah's career, which had initially been a shared source of pride, now seemed to be driving a wedge between them. The late nights at the office, the missed dinners, and the growing emotional distance began to erode the foundation of their marriage. Mark's condition required more attention than Sarah could provide, and her absence at crucial moments deepened the rift. Eventually, the weight of their circumstances reached a breaking point. Sarah made the heart-wrenching decision to leave, believing that by focusing entirely on her career, she could better support them financially. The separation was a painful acknowledgement of the realities they faced. Mark, though heartbroken, understood her decision. He watched her pack her bags with a mixture of sorrow and resignation, knowing that her leaving was a desperate attempt to save them from financial ruin. Sarah moved to a small apartment in the city, throwing herself even more into her work. The silence of her new home was a stark contrast to the life she once shared with Mark. Nights were filled with paperwork and court preparations, her mind constantly racing with thoughts of cases and deadlines. But beneath the surface of her professional success, an ache lingered, an unfulfilled space that no amount of work could fill. Mark, left alone in their once shared home, struggled with his health and loneliness. The walls echoed with memories of happier times, but now they were a constant reminder of what he had lost. Despite his deteriorating condition, he tried to remain strong, holding on to the hope that one day things might change for the better. In the heart of New York City, Sarah's career flourished beyond her wildest dreams. She became a partner at one of the most prestigious law firms, her name now synonymous with success and brilliance in legal circles. Her sharp intellect and relentless work ethic earned her a reputation that attracted high-profile clients and lucrative cases. The financial rewards of her hard work soon manifested in a lifestyle of luxury and sophistication. Sarah moved into a lavish penthouse apartment with sweeping views of the Manhattan skyline. The space was impeccably designed with modern furniture, art pieces from renowned artists, and every conceivable comfort. Her wardrobe was filled with designer clothes, and her social calendar was packed with exclusive events, dinners, and galas attended by the city's elite. She drove a sleek, black luxury car and dined at the finest restaurants, where she was greeted by name and given the best tables. Despite the opulence surrounding her, Sarah couldn't shake a growing sense of emptiness. Her days were filled with meetings, court appearances, and networking events, but her nights were often spent alone in her spacious penthouse, the silence deafening. She had achieved everything she had set out to accomplish in her career, but the personal cost was becoming increasingly apparent. The high-stakes cases and constant pressure took their toll, leaving Sarah feeling isolated and disconnected. Her success was a double-edged sword. While it brought admiration and respect, It also created a barrier between her and genuine human connection. Colleagues and clients saw her as a powerhouse, an unapproachable figure of authority and competence. Few knew the woman behind the formidable facade, the one who sometimes sat by her window, staring at the city lights and longing for something more. Sarah's luxurious life was a stark contrast to her past, filled with struggle and sacrifice. Yet, the material wealth and professional accolades seemed hollow without someone to share them with. Her mind often drifted back to the days with Mark, wondering what could have been if circumstances had been different. The high-rise walls of her penthouse, though adorned with every comfort, felt like a gilded cage, confining her to a life that, despite its outward allure, lacked the warmth and meaning she once knew. In a small, quiet town far removed from the bustling streets of New York, Mark's life took a harrowing turn. After months of unexplained fatigue, persistent pain, and a lingering sense of malaise, he finally sought medical advice. The local doctor, a compassionate yet blunt man, delivered the devastating news. Mark had been diagnosed with a terminal illness. The prognosis was grim, with the disease having already progressed significantly. Mark's initial reaction was a mixture of shock and numbness. He had faced many challenges in his life, but this felt insurmountable. The physical toll was immediate and relentless. His once strong and capable body began to betray him. Simple tasks became exhausting endeavors, and his energy waned with each passing day. The vibrant man who once served his country with honor and later tried to rebuild his life now found himself increasingly confined to his home. As his health deteriorated rapidly, Mark was forced to confront the reality of his situation. The once modest income from his occasional odd jobs and veterans' benefits was no longer enough to cover his mounting medical expenses. The physical limitations imposed by his illness made it impossible for him to continue working. Every breath was a struggle, every movement a reminder of his declining state. The small house he lived in, filled with memories of happier times, now echoed with the quiet desperation of his solitary battle. Mark faced the encroaching darkness with a mixture of bravery and resignation, trying to find solace in the simple pleasures that remained. He spent his days reading, reflecting on his past, and trying to come to terms with the limited future he faced. Despite the overwhelming odds, Mark's spirit remained unbroken. He continued to fight the disease with the same tenacity that had seen him through the toughest battles of his life. However, the fight was an uphill one, and with each doctor's visit, the prognosis grew darker, the list of treatments more exhaustive and less effective. In the face of his terminal diagnosis, Mark began to make peace with the idea of his mortality. Yet, a lingering hope persisted within him. A hope not for his own recovery, but for the well-being of those he cared about, especially Sarah, whom he still loved deeply despite their separation. As the days passed, the weight of his condition pressed heavier on him, but so too did his resolve to ensure that his final days, however numbered, would be spent with purpose and meaning. Jake, Mark's best friend and loyal companion, had been by his side through thick and thin. They had served together in the military, forging a bond that went beyond mere friendship. When Mark's health began to decline, Jake stepped up, becoming his primary caregiver. He managed the day-to-day tasks that Mark could no longer handle, from cooking meals to driving him to medical appointments. Jake's dedication was unwavering, but he could see the toll the illness was taking on his friend. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Jake sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by medical bills and insurance forms. The costs of Mark's treatments were astronomical, and despite Jake's best efforts, they were running out of options. Desperation set in as he realized that without significant financial help, Mark's care would suffer. Jake knew there was one person who might be able to help, though contacting her was a difficult decision. He remembered Sarah, Mark's ex-wife, and the love they once shared. Despite their separation, Jake believed that deep down, Sarah still cared for Mark. He hesitated, knowing it would be a difficult conversation, but Mark's condition left him with no choice. Taking a deep breath, Jake picked up the phone and dialed Sarah's number. The line rang several times before she answered, her voice a mix of surprise and curiosity. "Hello," Sarah speaking. "Sarah, it's Jake. Jake Thornton," he said, his voice steady but tinged with urgency. "I need to talk to you about Mark." There was a pause on the other end, and Jake could almost hear the gears turning in her mind as she processed his words. "Jake? What's going on? Is Mark okay?" "Sarah, Mark's not doing well. He's been diagnosed with a terminal illness. His condition is critical, and the medical bills are overwhelming. We need your help," Jake explained, his words coming out in a rush as he laid bare the dire situation. Another pause, longer this time, filled with an uncomfortable silence. Jake waited, hoping she would understand the gravity of the situation. Finally, Sarah spoke, her voice softer now. "How bad is it, Jake?" "It's bad, Sarah. He can't work anymore, and we're struggling to keep up with the costs of his treatment. I wouldn't be asking if it wasn't absolutely necessary." "Mark needs you," Jake implored, his voice breaking slightly. Sarah sighed, the weight of the revelation heavy in her response. "I'll come. Just tell me where he is." Relief washed over Jake, and he quickly provided her with the details. After hanging up, he glanced towards the living room where Mark was resting, unaware of the conversation that had just taken place. Jake hoped that Sarah's return would bring not only the financial support they desperately needed, but also a sense of closure and healing for both Mark and Sarah. Sarah sat in her elegantly furnished living room, the city lights of New York twinkling outside her penthouse windows. The conversation with Jake replayed in her mind, leaving her with a whirlwind of emotions. She had built a life of luxury and success, far removed from the quiet, humble existence she once shared with Mark. The news of his terminal illness struck her hard, awakening a mixture of guilt, nostalgia, and a reluctant sense of duty. Mark had always been a significant part of her life, even after their separation. His promise to leave her money in his will was not lost on her. Despite their past, he still cared enough to ensure her financial security. Sarah found herself torn between the pragmatic decision to secure her future and the emotional turmoil of facing the man she once loved in his most vulnerable state. She stared at her reflection in the window, seeing beyond the successful attorney to the woman who had once been deeply in love with Mark. Memories of their life together, both good and bad, flooded her thoughts. She remembered his laughter, their shared dreams, and the slow unraveling of their marriage under the weight of his PTSD and her career ambitions. The decision to leave him had been heart-wrenching, but at the time, she believed it was the only way to save herself and perhaps even him. Now, faced with the prospect of returning to the small town and to Mark, Sarah's feelings were complex. Part of her dreaded the confrontation with their shared past and the current harsh realities of his illness. Another part, however, felt a lingering sense of obligation, an old loyalty that refused to die. She knew she couldn't ignore Jake's plea, nor the moral responsibility she felt towards Mark. After a long night of contemplation, Sarah made up her mind. She would return to help Mark. Her motivations were a mix of genuine concern and the practical consideration of his financial promise. She packed her bags with a sense of resolve, trying to prepare herself for the emotional challenges ahead. As she boarded the train to the small town where Mark now lived, Sarah couldn't help but feel that this decision would change her life in ways she couldn't yet fathom. The journey was filled with anticipation and a heavy heart. The bustling city faded into the background, replaced by the quiet countryside. Sarah looked out the window, the familiar landscape stirring memories of a simpler, more intimate life. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was heading towards something significant, a chapter that would force her to confront not only Mark's condition, but also her own unresolved feelings and choices. Sarah's car slowly approached the small, familiar house where she and Mark had once shared their lives. Her heart pounded with anxiety and uncertainty as she parked and walked to the front door. The house, though well kept, had an air of melancholy about it. She took a deep breath and knocked, her hand trembling slightly. The door opened to reveal Jake, who gave her a reassuring nod before stepping aside to let her in. As she walked through the doorway, Sarah's eyes scanned the living room, taking in the changes and the familiar touches that still lingered. Then, she saw Mark. He was seated in a worn armchair, a blanket draped over his legs. The man who had once been strong and vibrant now appeared fragile and weakened by his illness. His face was gaunt, and his eyes held a weariness that spoke of long, painful days. Yet, amidst the frailty, there was a familiar spark in his eyes, the same light that had once drawn her to him. "Hi, Mark," Sarah said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Mark looked up, his expression a mix of surprise and emotion. "Sarah," he replied, his voice weak but filled with a warmth that reached out to her. The moment was charged with unspoken emotions, a blend of past grievances and enduring affection. Sarah felt a lump in her throat as she took a step closer, trying to find the right words. The tension in the room was palpable, the weight of their shared history hanging heavily between them. For the next few days, Sarah settled into a routine of caring for Mark. She brought him meals, helped him with his medication, and made sure he was comfortable. Despite the physical closeness, an emotional distance remained. Sarah performed her duties with a sense of detachment, unsure of how to navigate the complex web of feelings that resurfaced every time she looked at Mark. Mark, on the other hand, seemed to accept her help with quiet gratitude. He often watched her with a mixture of sadness and appreciation, aware of the effort it took for her to return and care for him. Their interactions were polite, almost formal, as they both struggled to reconcile their past with the present reality. In the quiet moments, when Sarah would catch Mark's gaze, she couldn't help but remember the love they had once shared. The spark in his eyes, though dimmed by illness, reminded her of the man he used to be. It was this flicker of recognition that kept her going, providing a small glimmer of hope in the midst of their strained reunion. As Sarah continued to care for Mark, she began to see beyond his frailty, glimpsing the strength and resilience that still resided within him. Each day, she found herself drawn closer to the man she once loved, even as she maintained a careful emotional distance. The tension between them remained, but beneath it lay the unspoken potential for healing and reconciliation. One afternoon, while Mark was resting, Sarah decided to organize the house and find the necessary financial documents. She made her way to the small, cluttered study, where stacks of papers and old boxes were haphazardly arranged. Determined to bring some order to the chaos, she began sorting through the piles. As she sifted through the clutter, Sarah stumbled upon an old, weathered box tucked away in a corner. Curious, she opened it and discovered a collection of letters and photographs. The first letter she unfolded was dated years ago, during Mark's time in the military. As she read the words, Sarah felt a rush of emotion. The letter spoke of Mark's bravery in battle, his leadership, and the sacrifices he made for his comrades. She continued to read through the letters, each one revealing more about Mark's heroic deeds and the respect he earned from his fellow soldiers. The letters were filled with gratitude and admiration, painting a picture of a man who had faced unimaginable hardships with courage and determination. Among the letters were photographs, capturing moments from Mark's time in the service. There were pictures of him in uniform, standing tall and proud with his unit, and candid shots of him laughing and sharing stories with his comrades. One photo, in particular, caught Sarah's eye. It was a group photo of Mark and several other soldiers, all smiling despite the evident weariness on their faces. On the back, a handwritten note read, "Brothers in arms, forever." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she continued to uncover more about Mark's past. She found certificates of commendation, medals for bravery, and personal notes from those he had helped during and after the war. There were documents detailing his efforts to support and advocate for fellow veterans, organizing events and fundraisers, and even establishing a local support group for those struggling with PTSD. The more Sarah discovered, the more she realized how little she knew about the extent of Mark's dedication and heroism. He had never spoken much about his time in the military, and she now understood that his modesty had kept these incredible achievements hidden from her. The man she once knew was not only a loving husband, but also a hero who had touched many lives. Feeling a profound sense of admiration and regret, Sarah carefully placed the letters and photos back in the box. She now saw Mark in a new light, recognizing the depth of his character and the strength of his spirit. This newfound understanding stirred something within her, a desire to honor his legacy and support him in any way she could during his final days. As days turned into weeks, Sarah found herself spending more time with Mark. Initially, her interactions with him were driven by a sense of duty and obligation. However, the more she observed him, the more she began to see Mark in a different light. Despite his physical decline, Mark faced each day with a quiet strength and humility that deeply moved her. She watched as he handled the daily struggles of his illness with grace, never complaining or succumbing to self-pity. His resilience and dignity in the face of such adversity made a profound impact on Sarah. She saw how he maintained a sense of humor, finding small joys in simple things, like the warmth of the morning sun or the chirping of birds outside the window. One evening, as Sarah was helping Mark with his medication, he looked at her and smiled. "Thank you, Sarah," he said softly. "You being here means more to me than I can express." Sarah felt a warmth spread through her heart, a connection rekindling that she had thought long extinguished. "I'm glad I can help, Mark," she replied, her voice tinged with sincerity and emotion. Their conversations grew more frequent and intimate. They reminisced about the past, shared their thoughts and fears, and slowly began to rebuild the emotional bridge that had once connected them so strongly. Sarah found herself laughing with Mark, sharing stories, and even confiding in him about her own struggles and regrets. Mark's humility and the way he faced his illness without bitterness or anger inspired Sarah. She saw a side of him that she had not fully appreciated before. A man who, despite his own suffering, still thought of others and found ways to offer support and kindness. His strength gave her strength, and she began to look forward to their moments together, cherishing the growing bond between them. As Sarah continued to care for Mark, she realized that her feelings for him were evolving. The distance she had initially kept began to dissolve, replaced by a genuine closeness that felt both comforting and natural. She was no longer just a caretaker. She was becoming a friend, a confidant, and perhaps, once again, a partner. The emotional reconnection was subtle yet profound. It brought a sense of peace and fulfillment to both of them, offering a refuge from the harsh realities of Mark's illness. Sarah found herself drawn to his bedside, not out of obligation, but out of a deep-seated desire to be there for him, to share in his journey and offer whatever comfort she could. In this unexpected closeness, they both found a semblance of solace and hope amidst the challenges they faced. One evening, as the sun began to set and cast a warm, golden glow through the windows, Mark asked Sarah to sit with him. His voice was soft, and there was a gravity in his tone that caught her attention. She pulled up a chair beside his bed, sensing that he had something important to share. "Sarah," he began, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that spoke of the urgency behind his words. "There's something I need to tell you." Something I've been keeping to myself for a long time. Sarah nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She took his hand in hers, silently urging him to continue. Mark took a deep breath, gathering his strength. I know my time is running out. I've made peace with that. But before I go, there's something you need to know. For years, I've been saving money, not for myself, but for a cause that's close to my heart. He paused, watching her reaction. Sarah's brows furrowed in confusion, but she remained silent, giving him the space to explain. I've saved a significant amount of money, Mark continued. My dream has always been to open a support center for veterans, a place where they can find the help and community they need to heal and rebuild their lives. It's my last wish, Sarah. I want to make sure it happens. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she absorbed his words. The selflessness and dedication that had defined Mark's life were embodied in this final act of generosity. She felt a mix of awe and sorrow, knowing how much this meant to him. "Mark, I had no idea," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Mark smiled weakly, his grip on her hand tightening. "I didn't want to burden you, but now, I need your help to make this dream a reality. You're the only one I trust to see it through." Sarah nodded, her mind racing with the possibilities and responsibilities that lay ahead. "I promise, Mark. I'll do everything in my power to make it happen. Your dream will live on." Mark's eyes glistened with gratitude and relief. "Thank you, Sarah. Knowing that you'll carry this forward gives me peace." As they sat together in the fading light, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. Mark's secret revealed not only his unwavering commitment to helping others, but also the depth of his love for those who had shared his struggles. She vowed to honor his legacy and ensure that his final wish would be fulfilled, no matter the obstacles they might face. Moved by Mark's selflessness and the depth of his commitment to helping others, Sarah felt a profound shift within herself. The revelation of his dream to establish a support center for veterans stirred something deep inside her, reigniting a passion she had long forgotten. Determined to honor his legacy, Sarah resolved to use her legal expertise and connections to bring Mark's vision to life. The very next day, Sarah began to take action. She reached out to her network of colleagues, friends, and clients, leveraging every connection she had built over the years. With her sharp legal mind, she navigated the complex process of setting up a nonprofit organization. She filed the necessary paperwork, drafted mission statements, and began to secure funding through grants and donations. Sarah's dedication to the project was unwavering. She spent countless hours researching the best practices for veteran support centers, consulting with experts in the field, and drafting plans for the facility. Her days were filled with meetings, phone calls, and strategy sessions, while her nights were spent poring over documents and blueprints. The penthouse that once symbolized her isolation and career-focused life now became the bustling hub of her new mission. In her efforts, Sarah found herself reconnected with a sense of purpose and fulfillment she had not felt in years. The project was not just about honoring Mark's wish. It was also about finding redemption and meaning in her own life. As she saw the pieces of the project come together, she felt a renewed sense of joy and hope. Mark, though growing weaker by the day, watched Sarah's progress with pride and gratitude. Her transformation and commitment to his dream brought him immense comfort. The support center, which he once thought might never be realized, was now taking shape before his eyes thanks to Sarah's tireless efforts. Every milestone achieved in the project brought Sarah and Mark closer. They shared their excitement over the plans, discussed potential programs and services for the veterans, and imagined the impact the center would have on countless lives. Sarah's heart swelled with pride and love, knowing that she was not only fulfilling Mark's last wish, but also creating a lasting legacy that would honor his heroic spirit. Sarah's change of heart was evident in every aspect of her life. She became more compassionate, driven by a cause greater than herself. Her legal skills and professional acumen, once solely focused on personal success, were now being used to make a profound difference in the lives of veterans. The project became her beacon of hope, guiding her through the difficult days and filling her with a renewed sense of purpose and connection. With Sarah's unwavering dedication and tireless efforts, the Veteran Support Center began to take shape. The initial stages of the project involved securing a location, a modest but welcoming building on the outskirts of town. Sarah's connections proved invaluable as she managed to gather donations and volunteer support from various organizations and individuals who were moved by the cause. Renovations on the building commenced swiftly. Contractors and volunteers worked side by side to transform the space into a haven for veterans. Sarah meticulously oversaw the progress, ensuring that every detail met the vision that she and Mark had discussed. The center was designed to be both functional and comforting, with therapy rooms, communal areas, and spaces for recreational activities. As the physical structure came together, Sarah also focused on building a team of professionals who shared the same passion and dedication for helping veterans. She recruited counselors, therapists, and support staff who were not only highly skilled but also deeply committed to the mission of the center. Training programs were established, and partnerships with local healthcare providers and veteran organizations were formed to ensure comprehensive care. Throughout this process, Sarah kept Mark closely informed. She brought him updates, photos, and even video calls from the construction site. Mark, though confined to his bed, followed the progress with a renewed sense of purpose. Each milestone achieved brought a smile to his face and a spark to his eyes. The dream he had nurtured for so long was becoming a reality, and this gave him an unexpected burst of energy and hope. One afternoon, Sarah arranged for a special visit. With the help of Jake and a wheelchair, Mark was taken to see the nearly completed center. As they arrived, Mark's eyes widened with awe and gratitude. The once dilapidated building was now a vibrant, welcoming space, filled with light and the promise of healing. Sarah guided him through the halls, describing the various programs and services that would soon be available. Seeing the center in its near-final form filled Mark with immense pride and satisfaction. His dream, once just a distant hope, was now tangible. This accomplishment infused him with a sense of peace and fulfillment, knowing that his legacy would live on and continue to support his fellow veterans long after he was gone. Mark's health might have been failing, but his spirit was invigorated by the realization of his dream. Sarah, standing by his side, felt a deep connection to Mark and the project they had brought to life together. The center was more than just a building. It was a testament to resilience, compassion, and the enduring power of love and dedication. As they left the center, Sarah felt a profound sense of achievement and gratitude, knowing that they had created something truly meaningful that would impact countless lives. Mark's final days were spent surrounded by love and the fulfillment of his dream. The support center, now fully operational, stood as a testament to his life's purpose and dedication. Sarah remained by his side, providing comfort and support as his condition worsened. Despite the inevitable, Mark faced the end with a sense of peace, knowing that his legacy would live on through the center and the countless veterans it would help. One quiet evening, with the soft glow of the bedside lamp casting gentle shadows, Mark passed away. He was surrounded by the people who loved him, including Jake and Sarah, who held his hand until the very end. His passing was serene, marked by the quiet strength and dignity that had defined his life. As tears flowed and hearts ached, there was also a profound sense of gratitude for the time they had shared and the impact he had made. In the days that followed, Sarah found herself transformed by the entire experience. The grief of losing Mark was deep, but so was the resolve to carry forward his vision. The support center had become more than just a project. It was a beacon of hope and a source of healing for many. Sarah, once driven by the pursuit of material success, now found her life filled with a new sense of purpose and compassion. She decided to dedicate herself fully to the center, using her legal expertise and organizational skills to expand its reach and impact. Sarah took on the role of director, ensuring that Mark's values and mission remained at the heart of the organization. She worked tirelessly, inspired by the memory of Mark and the love they had shared. Under her leadership, the center flourished, offering a wide range of services including counseling, job training, and medical care. Veterans from all walks of life found solace and support within its walls, and the community rallied around the cause, providing donations and volunteer help. Sarah's commitment to the center brought her a sense of fulfillment that she had never experienced before. Sarah's transformation was evident to all who knew her. She had shifted from a life centered on personal ambition to one focused on giving and service. The lessons she had learned from Mark about resilience, humility, and the importance of helping others became guiding principles in her work. Her days were filled with meaningful interactions and the satisfaction of making a real difference in the lives of veterans. As she stood at the dedication ceremony for a new wing of the center, named in honor of Mark, Sarah felt a profound sense of connection to him. The plaque bore his name and a simple inscription, "In honor of Mark, whose spirit of service and love lives on." It was a reminder that his legacy was not just a building or an organization, but the ongoing impact of his values and vision. In that moment, surrounded by veterans, supporters, and the community, Sarah felt Mark's presence. His love and dedication had not only transformed her life, but also created a lasting impact that would continue to grow. Her journey from a life of material success to one of purpose and compassion was complete, and she knew that Mark's spirit would always guide her in the work she had committed her life to.